My favorite statistic is helping like 7 of them become millionaires. And that isn't the cool stat. The cool stat is they're represented by 6 different Enneagram types, and not one was an 8 like me. So understanding the power of really using this tool in integrity, with beautiful intent for their greatest good, we all can win. And they felt empowered, they felt supported, they felt seen, heard, understood, and valued. And the compound effect of that still continues to this day.
Welcome to the Glow Up Boss, your beauty school or your business school for people in the beauty industry, teaching you how to not only glow up your business, but also how to glow up your life. So I keep thinking about this. I keep coming back to this. It really is about know thyself, right? The more you know about yourself, the more you know the things that you're good at, the things that you definitely find more challenging, that you might need to either decide not to do and to delegate to somebody else, or you need to get a little additional education and insight to become better in those areas. And man has always looked, whether to the stars or to therapists or to psychics, to understand why things go the way that they go. Usually when things don't go well for themselves, that's usually when we tend to look outside of ourselves for explanations. But nowadays, what I will say is there are so many incredible resources out there to help us know thyself, right? Know thyself. There's a lot of power in knowing thyself. So I was at an event here in Scottsdale, Arizona, a couple of years ago. And for the very first time ever, I heard about the Enneagram. And I was sitting there was this incredible woman on stage, all in pink, bright pink. And boy, was she a powerhouse. And I thought, okay, if a woman like that is an expert in something called the Enneagram, I absolutely need to know more about this thing. So I signed up with her. I had her do my chart, and I was really kind of skeptical. And I read through it and I thought, oh my God, she's got me. For better and for worse, this woman has got me. She got me. And, it was kind of interesting because initially when I read it, there were things that I thought, oh my gosh, I don't like this about myself. But after the initial shock wore off and I started looking at it in different ways, I started realizing that these were things that I really needed to embrace because they were actually not my weaknesses, but were really truly things that were my strength that really set me apart and really helped me to achieve the things that I've achieved in life. Anyway, enough about me. I want to introduce you to Tracy O'Malley. She's an Enneagram expert and leadership authority. She's a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and top-ranked podcast host. She's described as a business biohacker, the way she uniquely combines Enneagram wisdom with cutting-edge leadership strategies to unlock peak performance in individuals and teams. She's partnered with global giants like Google, YouTube, Amazon, and John Deere, and been featured on ABC, NBC, Business Insider, and MarketWatch, and so much more. She's led multi-million-dollar organizations and impacted over 100,000 clients. Her holistic approach extends beyond the boardroom, helping clients achieve balance and success in both their professional and personal lives. I resonate with what she does so much, and I know she's going to bring you so much incredible value. So, Tracy O'Malley, I am humbled, and I feel so incredibly privileged for both myself to be able to actually have a conversation with you in person, but so incredibly privileged to be able to bring your brilliance to my listeners. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm honored to serve you and the community that respects the hell out of you. So let's let it rip. Thank you for that intro. I'm like, oh, damn, that's beautiful.
But it's all true.
That pink power suit was something else.
It really was.
I wore it for our mutual friend that was running that event because that's her color. And whenever I go speak at an event, I really try to honor whoever is running it, their brand color, and that was her. So, yeah.
Well, we shall say her name. Her name is Olenka Cullinan.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, definitely go listen because she's incredible.
Yeah, truly amazing and one of a kind like you. So I want to know a little bit more about you. How did you become this incredible, expert in this field?
I came into it kicking and screaming. I wanted nothing to do with it, which I think is the beauty in life, right? Like it takes us on this journey. Sometimes we go off-roading a little bit and we think we have a set way we expect it to go, but our timing is not always divine timing. And I'd kind of hit this point about 12 and a half years ago. I had just turned 40 years old. I was I've been a single parent for 16 years now and the sole provider emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially. And, I was in an industry that I really couldn't stand. I was very, very good in it. It was male dominated, so I could be very intense and it was rewarded. But it was like killing my soul every day. And I started to see my kids repeat some patterns from my life that I was like, oof, I know, like if I don't repair this, I'm going to repeat it and they're going to repeat it. And I don't want that for them. And then that still wasn't enough, though, for me to kind of be open to new tools in the toolbox. But my dad suddenly passed away in that summer after a 12-day cancer diagnosis. And I was like, wow, like life really is too short. It kind of came up and walloped me upside the head. And, looking at my family of origin, although I love them dearly, they're a very passionate bunch, like 100% Irish and spicy and a lot of alcohol. And I knew that like what we do is what we're taught, told, and modeled. And although I love my family dearly, like what they have taught, told, and modeled for me is not what I want my lineage to continue doing. And so it required some radical changes in my life. And, part of that was wiping out my entire social network, the playground that I played in, personally and professionally. So I walked away from my career. I walked away from every relationship in my life other than my children. And I really distanced myself for some time from my family of origin and decided to kind of go inward. And some of my coping mechanisms were really shitty, quite honestly. Like on paper, I had the receipts to show like the way I did things worked out well. And I think for a lot of you listening, you might have it on paper that everything looks great. Your Instagram might look great, but your soul is calling you to be this higher version of yourself. And you can't do it while we're still entertaining and co-signing nonsense in our life, right? And so I decided to kind of strip it all down and take it to ground zero. And some of my coping mechanisms were like alcohol and food addiction. And so I made the decision to check myself into rehab. And everybody that was in my life thought I was crazy for doing it. They're like, you're not bad, which is, your first sign that you need to change your environment. They were actually like saying like, you shouldn't grow yourself. Like that's a bad thing. Or I was like this mirror that they didn't want to look at. And meanwhile, I was just doing this for me and my family. But when I wiped out my entire network and got these tools in my toolbox, and I've now, maintained sobriety for over 12 years now, on day 2 in rehab, my therapist, who I still see to this day, she wanted me to do this Enneagram thing. And with a lot of colorful language and a high level of intensity, respectfully, I said, go F yourself. I don't need another label. I don't need to be put in a box. I'm walking in the door here with plenty of labels and shit shows in my life. I don't need to add another reason why I'm a piece of crap. And she's as spicy as me, and she didn't even miss a beat. And she's like, my dear, your best thinking has helped get you here. And this might actually help you get out of the box that not only you've put yourself in, but the world has also put you in. So how about you open up your mind a little bit? It's like, well, Nance, you got a point. And it was in day 2. So I was very fresh and very raw at that time and not knowing what or who I would end up going home to after, my time there. And I was mistyped at first, and we figured that out pretty quickly, which is very common with the Enneagram, by the way. But when I had the same kind of reaction that you did when you were confronted with yours, is like, oh, it's kind of like when we look in the mirror, ladies, right? We never look at the parts about ourselves that we love first, right? Like I don't look at my eyes first, ever. I look at my thighs. I look at this line in the middle of my forehead. Like the things that I want to criticize or improve constantly, I look at first. So it takes away the gratitude for the parts of me that are beautiful. And the Enneagram had the same effect on me. I went straight for the shit about Enneagram 8s that is terrible, like domineering, aggressive, kind of a bully sometimes, lack vulnerability, aggressive, all these things that, yes, check, 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 check. And sometimes I wore as a badge of honor, but my soul was like, you're just using that to protect you from your biggest fears. And so that was my first aha, is like, okay, all those things can be flipped into my superpowers, right? And that's the thing with the Enneagram. The things that are each Enneagram type superpowers can also and will also be their kryptonite, right? That intensity, that protectiveness, that assertiveness is actually why people feel so safe and protected and are magnetized towards me. As long as it's coming from love, compassion, empathy, service, grace, fun, and innocence, that same intensity, that same assertiveness can be the wrecking ball for everything I care about in my life. And every person that comes in contact with me, if it's coming from a place of fear, insecurity, unworthiness, shame, guilt, and ego. So I had that kind of divine moment where I'm looking at all the things that are really negative and challenging for me. And I had this like divine appointment that was like, but where there is darkness, there's always light, but you have to kind of go there to find it. And that's when I saw the things like world-class leader, servant, protector, all these things. I'm like, I know that's in me. I've been there. I've touched it before. But, these other things that happen in life kind of, the conditioning, the patterns that I would have would derail it and turn it into kryptonite. And so that was my first aha in day 2. About myself. And then the other aha I had very quickly was like, oh shit, like I'm raising 2 kids that I know are not an Enneagram 8. And I was like, I need to figure out which one they are out of the 9. And I found very, very quickly where they landed on the Enneagram. Not only are they very different from each other, they're very different from me as well. And I was like, okay, if I can just learn these 3 languages and understand the motivations and the fears of the 3 of us, then I'm getting somewhere. And so I just really started understanding like what motivated each one. And it was this, conviction with compassion, know thyself is really important, but you must meet yourself with compassion. Otherwise, you're just going to keep the pattern rolling, right? So I felt convicted, but also with a lot of compassion for myself because I only knew this language my whole life. The eight way, like I could do it in my sleep, but now I needed to learn the 2 and 7 way and what is at the root of their motives and their fears. And, why I felt so convicted is because I low key kind of judged my own children. Like, this one's so sensitive. He cares what everybody thinks. Like, that's weakness. And my daughter, who's in the beauty industry, she's an Enneagram 7 and free spirited and can look unfocused and all over the place. And I would judge both of them for that. But understanding what motivates them, those actually are what makes them great when it's harnessed and leveraged properly. And so when I came home, they were 14 and 15 at the time. And, raising teenagers is no joke, especially as a single mom. And my track record, obviously, in really knowing who they were wasn't great. And I started to feel the disconnect and I didn't want that because I don't have relationships, with my parents at this point. And I didn't want that for them, but I needed to understand who they were at their core, not to try to fit them in the 8 way like I am, not to try to convince them to be motivated like I am, to try and convince them to not have the fears that they do. Instead, I was like, I understand why this is scary for you. Even though it's not for me, it doesn't make you weaker than me. And how I can support you is this way. And yes, you are going to care what people think for the rest of your life. And that's why you're so great. However, we're not going to let that control you, and overnight the culture in my home changed. Getting sober obviously helped a lot. And the tools that I use daily in recovery and, emotional sobriety, not just like sobriety from people, places, and things, but my own emotional sobriety obviously helps the cause there. But really using this framework, I talk and I teach the Enneagram like it's a navigation system. Like we all have our home base, right? But we venture out from home base quite often. And if we don't know kind of what tools to use to get us where we need to go, and we're just kind of in home base all the time, it's going to feel real clunky for us and uncomfortable and all those things. And so I started really understanding the framework. I've always kind of read maps when I was a little girl. People would make fun of me. I'd read the atlas. That's how old I am. We didn't have like Google and Google Maps and things like that. We actually read maps. And I would read them as a little girl just for fun. And people would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to understand how we get from here to there. It was very symbolic for my life growing up in a very toxic alcoholic home. You never knew what you were going to get. And so I was always trying to understand and put the pieces together of why things were the way they were. And how we get from here to there. How did my dad go from this to this? How did my mom go from this to this? And why am I so different than my sister? I really wanted to understand this. And I've always been kind of somebody who is very people aware. And you are too. Very, very into understanding and that interpersonal kind of thing. The Enneagram gave me language to what I already kind of knew.
Glow Up Boss podcast is brought to you today by Infinity Sun. Are you an entrepreneur thinking that you'd like to start a new business that's fun, that doesn't cost a lot of money to start up, that you could do in the evenings and weekends and earn lots and lots of money? Starting a spray tanning business definitely checks off all those boxes. With state-of-the-art plug-and-spray proprietary spray tanning systems that require only one solution, you can literally choose 30 different levels of spray on the spray tanning system itself. Infinity Sun offers sunless tanning solutions that combine high-end skincare together with sunless tanning technology to not only create the most flawless looking tans, but also to improve the condition of the skin.
And I was blown away because it made so much sense. Like every aspect of each Enneagram type, and then to be able to bring it into business, which I did in the health and wellness industry, where I built a sales team of over 100,000 people. I went from a male-dominated industry to a female-dominated industry overnight. And I did well with the intense men. How am I going to speak to every woman that comes across me? If they're not like me, how do I do that? And I started really understanding the Enneagram without putting tests in front of anyone. I got so good at like, okay, where do they fall here? Or where do I think they fall here? And I'll start speaking to it, and I'll know when I land, because you'll know when you land. People are like, oh my gosh, it's like you read my mind. You see through my soul. Like, are you a fly on the wall? I feel like I've known you my whole life. And I was like, cool. If I know where they land, then I know what their biggest fear is, and I know how to empower them and what motivates them. And so, in an industry where I had no social network, I built this sales organization of over 100,000 people and helped several, be super successful in that industry as well. And my favorite statistic is helping like 7 of them become millionaires. And that isn't the cool stat. The cool stat is they're represented by 6 different Enneagram types, and not one was an 8 like me. So understanding the power of really using this tool in integrity, with beautiful intent for their greatest good, we all can win. And they felt empowered, they felt supported, they felt seen, heard, understood, and valued. And the compound effect of that still continues to this day. And then I was asked, like, what are you doing? How do you, like, are you psychic or something? I'm like, well, I do have a little bit of that too, but I have very strong intuition and some intuitive gifts that are way woo, probably for this crowd, maybe not.
No, not for the beauty crowd.
Okay, good. Yeah, I got some spiritual shit going on. And then the modality that I love to use is the Enneagram, because I can give other people that language and give them their navigation system and roadmap. Because life takes us off-roading sometimes, and the Enneagram can help people get right back in their lane. And it was probably about 8 years ago when I had my own kind of health crisis, and I kind of had to take a forced sabbatical a little bit. And I saw very clearly that, like, what I was doing, although it was amazing, I was at the top of my game, that part of the story was over. And I needed to go out into the world and teach this leadership with this modality and my other modalities that I use. And so 8 years ago, ironically, is when the Enneagram started to become trendy. And it's not lost on me that like the divine timing of that was not because it was trendy. Like I don't do shit just because it's trendy. But it pissed me off that it was trendy and it was being used very flippantly and cutesy, that I was like, you guys are all missing the point. You're all missing the point. And I'm going to come out of the gates, guns ablaze, and come out of the Enneagram closet with my special tool and teach you actually how to integrate this tool in your life. Because the information doesn't equal transformation. It's the integration of it that does.
And that's where I got stuck. I never integrated.
Most don't. It's hard. Like we go to the conferences, we go to the events, we take the courses, we listen to the podcasts, and we're like gathering intel. And think about your computer. Like if you take in and have all these tabs open, you're going to end up with a virus on your computer. Well, we in human form are doing the same thing. It's like, great. Like, yes, this is your Enneagram. And I was on a call yesterday with probably the toughest client I've ever had in all 12 years I've ever done coaching like this. And he was an 8 like me. So I was like, bring it. Like, but he's like, why do I need to know this? I'm like, you don't. If you think your life is freaking great, then don't use it. But I would guess there are certain things in your life that are not great. And you have to open up your mind. You have to not only know the tool, the Enneagram, you have to know what it's used for and when to pick it up. And you only build that skill set when you put the reps in. It's just like, and I asked him, like, do you work out? He goes, yeah, every day. I said, did you build that bicep overnight? I said, no, you built that bicep because you wanted strong muscles for whatever reason, whether it was aesthetics or health or whatever. I said, you didn't do it because somebody told you to. You did it because you decided to, and you saw the benefit in that. And if you don't see the benefit in understanding yourself and other people at a deeper level, then absolutely, this is a waste of your time. But he's like, how am I going to know how to do that? I said, you just practice picking up the tool and using it so that you build that muscle. Because here's the thing. I was really glad that I had been using this tool for as long as I had, because, things got really hard in my life at a time. And thank God for this tool. And thank God for understanding it for both my kids as they moved through teenage years now into their late 20s and dating again and being in a relationship with somebody wired like you, that there's no way I would have been able to speak in a way that he could feel understood without integration of this tool. So yeah, you can't just listen to this podcast and be like, you're an expert and you know what to do with it. Like, you have to practice using it, and that's messy. And most of us don't like to be messy.
Totally. So I'm gonna pause that for a second. I'm just gonna ask. So anybody can go on ChatGPT or on Google and say, what is Enneagram? But how would you frame it, like a little bit about the history of the Enneagram and how it works, so that my listeners will understand it and try to see how it can kind of fit into their lives and help them to relate to their clients? Like, a lot of our clients are like hairdressers, spray tan artists, estheticians. You talk to the public all the time. Talking to the public all the time, but they're also business owners. Yeah. So they have to learn how to, set up, run, and grow their businesses. Yep. But the business is very much a reflection of where we are in ourselves and in our own lives, which is why I think this is so incredibly potent. Yeah.
So I hate the question about like the history of the Enneagram, because if you're like me, you're like, I don't give a shit where this thing came from. Tell me what's in it for me. So I will give you both answers. Like, there is ancient history. This tool has been around for a long, long time. It's just like any tool.
It's just establishing credibility.
Yeah. I totally get it.
Just like I introduced you and all the accolades, right?
I get it. I totally get it. But just like any teachings and tools, they're up for interpretation.
Totally.
Right. And you can hear the Enneagram taught very, very different ways, and the way that they translate the information. I just say I'm the integration specialist, and I would go toe to toe with anyone in Enneagram language as far as integration goes. But I want you to kind of think about, and this is what I believe to be true, and I've carried 2 babies in this body. And they were very unique in utero too. And how they were in utero is very true to their personality, earth side, right? Outside in the world. And I do believe that we have this divine soul blueprint that we're given, right? And then we're dropped into these families, environments, situations, cultures, schools, and the authentic expression of that can change depending on what you've experienced and what you're experiencing, right? And that's where we start to see these other components of our personality take over to survive rather than to thrive, right? And where we go under stress and where we go when we're at our best self, this is all that framework that is the Enneagram. And there's 9 different archetypes that reside in this language and in these teachings. And each one, like I said, has very unique gifts and very unique fears and very unique motivations. And none is better than the other. And that was one of the things, like, I used to think people that didn't think like me or weren't motivated like me were less than me. And I'm not proud to say that, but I would gather most of us have felt that at some point. It's like, I don't understand how they even function.
It's like we think we're the center of the universe.
We
so
do.
Like anyone who's other than us,
yeah,
it's hard for us to, to see them any other way. So no, it's I think it's totally normal.
So we have the 9 types, but within those 9 types, there's these 3 centers of intelligence. And this is really important for everyone to understand is like, yes, our home base and our main character energy is rooted in our core Enneagram type, which doesn't change, but the expression of it absolutely does.
Is this kind of like your sun, moon, and rising?
Yes, very similar. Like My daughter is an astrologist. She's in the beauty industry. Classic Enneagram 7 has like 14 different services she does. Like she does a lot of things. But we talk about that all the time. Like the way that our sun, moon, rise and our birth chart really can change. I mean, we could have 2 Aries sitting right next to each other. In fact, one of my closest friends is an Aries like me, but we're a little bit different. Same thing with our Enneagram. We're both Enneagram 8s as well. But, our components in certain parts of our framework are a little bit different. But understanding that and using it like this navigation system is really important. But back to the 3 centers of intelligence, wherever your core Enneagram type falls is like your default center of intelligence that you go to. So you as a 4 go to the feeling center first, right? And you exude feelings, which is what makes you amazing, right? One of my kids is in the feeling center. So people in the feeling center automatically go to, what do I feel about this and what has happened, right? You guys are very past, experience oriented. You're like, okay, how did things go last time? And you guys can carry shame if you're not careful, right? That's your kind of go-to emotion. The 3 types in the thinking center are what could happen. They're very forward thinking. And what do I think about this? That's their default strategy. And people that are in the instinctual or gut or action center, where I find my home base, we're instinctual, right? And we go to what is happening now and what do I need to do about it, right? That's why when I would see my son being wrapped up in what he feels about it, my daughter thinking about shit all the time, I'm like, who cares? None of that matters. But it does. And the more well-rounded and the more self-aware, emotionally intelligent, stronger critical thinkers we can start to use equally the 3 centers of intelligence so that we are a more well-rounded. Because even though I'm an instinctual, home-based person, I still have feelings. I still have a brain. But not just relying on instincts alone. You can't just rely on feelings, which you like to. Right. My daughter
feels natural.
Yeah.
Right?
And it is.
Yeah.
It is natural, but we want to use it by design, not default. That's my take on the Enneagram, and then there's these other components, the wings and the growth and the stress numbers that make up your framework, your roadmap, your navigation system. But you got to know what to do with it and when to use it.
So for anybody who wants to find out their Enneagram type, what do you think is the best way for them to go about doing this?
This is the little asterisk in the Enneagram world. It's not like human design where you just have to know your birthday and, the time of day you were born and the city you were born in. I wish it was that simple, but it's just not, because the Enneagram brings together not just spirituality, but psychology and life experience. It's the nature and nurture thing, where human design, astrology, a lot of cool things that I am obsessed with are just rooted in like that. Why I love the Enneagram is that it is a little more complex than that. And it takes kind of your soul blueprint and your life experiences and kind of brings them together in that expression. And so all the online assessments that you see out there, free and paid, are inaccurate about 65 to 70% of the time. So you really have one of two ways to go about this. You can, say, I want to go on this discovery process and I want to kind of, adventure. You can take one of those assessments as a starting point for sure. And I've done thousands of interviews with people using those old tests, and the stats were accurate. They were wrong 65 to 70% of the time. So you can take one of those as a starting point and go on the self-discovery process. But if you're like me and have experienced any kind of trauma in your life, the ability to be really radically, compassionately honest with yourself is challenging. Not because we're trying to manipulate the thing, even though I probably would have had I known what I was taking when I did. It's very challenging for you to see those blind spots sometimes. And, a lot of us have these coping mechanisms and patterns that we have built to kind of protect at all costs the core fear of each Enneagram type. So it's more challenging, but have at it. You can go at it, but don't hold it to be true fully. The other way is you get with somebody like me. And I have an assessment that you took over 95% accurate. And I've done thousands of interviews with this, and those statistics, I think I've only had 3 or 4 of that. I was like, this might be a little skewed. But it's kind of I liken it to the fast pass at Disneyland or the VIP pass at Universal Studios. I'm somebody that does not like to wait in line. I don't especially if I believe in something, I want to go right to the best, or I want to go to the guide or the person that could take me through to the front of the line. And so if you like standing in lines and doing all that and enjoying the experience of Disneyland like that, take your Enneagram journey the same way. If you're somebody who's skip the bullshit, bring me what's in this for me. And once you have the right information, then you can see your framework. Then you kind of connect with me and you get your soul blueprint. You can do a reading, any of those things. But just know that any of the Enneagram assessments out there are going to be inaccurate 65% of the time. You can listen to my podcast too to kind of help you narrow it down if you'd like.
I love that.
Yeah.
There are thousands of homeless dogs in the pounds and shelters and running all over the streets, and not enough people out there to help them. Sprays for Strays is a fundraising organization that raises money through the sunless tanning and beauty industry to help all the rescues all over the United States of America pull the dogs out of the pounds and shelters, get them vetted, get their vaccinations, get them spayed and neutered, help with any sort of behavioral issues, and help to get them into their forever homes. Go to spraysforstrays.com and become a member, or donate. Every little bit of support helps. Thank you to our sponsor, Sprays for Strays, for helping to save the lives of dogs, one spray tan at a time. Okay, awesome. So I always end my podcast with 3 action items, 3 things for someone to go and do to move whatever that specific topic is forward, whether it's, starting a business and kind of conceptualizing, or, branding, how they're going to brand their business. So with this, which I'm going to call self-discovery, to help people have a better business faster. Yeah. What do you think are the 3 things they could take away from this to move things forward? What should they do?
This is not going to be the popular answer. And it's the truth. And trust me when I say this was not a popular answer for me. And if I could have found a workaround, I absolutely would have found it for you all and would be sharing it with you. I have people like the companies that you said, Google, John Deere, they want my strategy. I'm a hell of a strategist. I'm wicked smart, right? I'm always kind of, if you looked at there's this meme with Zach Galifianakis from The Hangover where he's got all these equations flying all over his head. That's basically me on any given day at any given moment. My brain is always in strategy mode. And most of us are doing the work from the neck up, right? We're filling our brains with stuff. We're listening to people, which yes, that's really good. But most of us are doing it to avoid the stuff that's happening from the neck down. Most of us are walking around neck down dead, right? And I'm telling you right now, getting in tune with yourself. Obviously, the Enneagram is a beautiful, beautiful tool. And also, like, it's one thing to have awareness, but, understanding where we started to use some of these coping skills along the way. And I'm a firm believer, and I can feel you all rolling your eyes right now. Inner child stuff, right? Like, really not to be victim-y, not to get stuck there. And most of you might be thinking, Trace, like, I don't have time for this shit. I have to build a business like my life depends on it. And I get it. I've been there. And the more that I avoided this, the harder that was. Right. And I believe there's like 3 little legends in each of us. It's not just one inner child. There's like 3 little legends in each of us. And we have to be willing to honor each part of their journey. There's the one that took the hit, usually from ages 2 to, 7, right? They're the one that took the hit, like, ooh, that hurt. Right? That part of you needs the most nurturing. The second little legend in you is from 8 to 12, right? This is the one that built the coping mechanisms, the beliefs, the thoughts, the unworthiness stuff that comes up, or I need to do this in order to X, Y, Z, right? That one needs protection. That one actually needs nurturing. The first one needs protection. This one needs more nurturing because this is where a lot of the self-abandonment, codependency, all the things. And trust me, this shit shows up in our business, not just in our relationships, but this hardcore shows up in our business too. And then the third little legend is kind of the rebellious one. This one is about 13 to up. Your experiences, thoughts, feelings, emotions that you had from ages 13 and up. This is the one that wants to not feel the pain that the first one took, wants to change the patterns that are showing up for the second little legend. Because, those thoughts, feelings, emotions, coping skills are really doing a number on our life. Even when we have the receipts to show it's working out all right. And so really being open to letting those little legends speak to you. And again, most of you are like, Trace, I don't have time for that. Life will be like, that's cute, hold my beer eventually. And, I'm at 52 years old and I started this when I was 40. And if you're like me also and don't remember a lot of your childhood, then you are the exact person that needs to kind of dive in a little deeper. Most people that don't remember their childhoods are the ones that need to do this the most. And trust me, when you do honor the journey of the little legends, you become legendary, personally and professionally. It is the most important work alongside in tandem with strategy. Because you can have all the business. There are so many people that are business savvy, but like they're a wrecking ball in every area of their life. They can't keep a team or even one employee to save their life. They're burning through people. They can't retain clients, right? They have turnover, things like that. So being able to go inward with compassion, with kindness, with curiosity. And then the third thing is, honestly, get outside. I know that sounds really silly, but that's where you will connect with the little legends. If you're like me, the only safe place I ever felt as a kid was outdoors, away from the household that I grew up in. And the more that I just laced up my shoes every day for a walk, not for a workout, not for a calorie burn, not part of a 75 hard program, not anything, but to connect with the little legends in me and nature and this beautiful divine planet that we're blessed to be on, in this beautiful vessel I've been gifted. I want to honor it and move it and really let the little legends in me, like, okay, it's time for you to speak freely. Get outside with nature.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
You're amazing. How can people find you and how can people work with you?
You can find me a few different ways. My website is my name, tracyo'malley.com, Tracy with no E. I have a podcast. You can search my name on all the platforms. It's changing at the time of this recording. But you can find it, and it has over 420 episodes ready for you to binge out on. And at the website, you can get your soul blueprint, your soul Enneagram blueprint. And lastly, I'm on the Instagram at Tracy_O'Malley. There's lots of good shit there too.
That's amazing. I've gotten so much from this, and I really appreciate you coming, and I'm so excited to talk to you offline after the podcast. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
It's my honor. Thanks.